Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astottara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakun Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Vrindavan Dham ki Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki Ganga Mai ki Yamuna Mai ki Bhakti Devi ki Tulsi Maharani ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shriman Mahaprabhu ki Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaura Premanande. So this morning we will continue the reading of Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta, the 4th volume, and the chapter is entitled This Remote Corner of the World. And we are reading from Prabhupada's time in Gainesville in July 1971. It was almost midnight, and Prabhupada went to his room. When he had first arrived in Gainesville, he had agreed to initiate the 5 eligible candidates, and had even taken their japa beads. But now the day had passed, there had been no initiation, and Prabhupada still had the 5 strands of beads. Joseph and Sam, who had come all the way from New Orleans, David Lieberman and his wife Adrienne, and a Gainesville boy named Gary were all in anxiety. They had stayed up, talking among themselves, wondering whether Prabhupada would hold an initiation ceremony in the morning before he left. Aravinda told them there would be no time for a ceremony in the morning, but that he would ask Srila Prabhupada when they could have their beads back. He went to Prabhupada's room, leaving the devotees to sit and talk about Srila Prabhupada. When Aravinda returned, he surprised everyone by announcing, "Prabhupada is going to give you your beads now. He is going to give you your initiation in his room." The devotees excitedly hurried to Srila Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada sat on his bed. He wore no shirt, only his dhoti, which he had pushed up high on his thighs and tucked under himself like a loincloth or gamcha. His body was smooth and glowing. The devotees sat on the floor around his bed while he held their beads in his hands and chanted. quite a different experience from what we are used to. Huh? Great preparations, big yagya, you get all these. I don't know if whoever got initiated, you get prepped beforehand, where you'll sit. Sometimes the temple room is marked and the Guru's Vyasasana is kept in one place. It's a whole big organization. But here this initiation was so informal, practically at midnight in Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada is sitting on his bed with nothing on the top, and his dhoti is like up to his thigh. Very informal. And he's going to chant on each set of beads a full round and then give each one the set of beads. It's a very different arrangement, so very sweet and very intimate. Prabhupada handed Gary his beads. So now your name is Dharmadas. This means one who is a strict follower of all religious principles. Dharma speaks. I was actually very nervous and I was practically shaking because I was afraid I would do something wrong in front of Srila Prabhupada. I was so nervous practically I couldn't even hear properly, but I was very happy to have been accepted by Srila Prabhupada. I knew, of course, there was no question of ever leaving the movement now. I never wanted to leave anyway, but now this was official. Even if I had considered it before, now there was no question of it. Nowadays, some spiritual masters, when they give initiation, they also suggest to ask the devotees to take another vow, never to leave the Krishna consciousness movement. You may have heard it happen sometimes. But you can hear from this Bhakta Gari or Dharma Prabhu, it was already implicit. The vow was implied in any case by their surrender and their attachment to Srila Prabhupada that this is not something that they would conceive of doing. It was an implicit vow that was already there in their hearts. Never to leave the shelter of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's arrangements for their deliverance. Then there was Joseph from New Orleans. What is his name? Prabhupada asked Aravinda. Aravinda read from a sheet, Bhagavat Das. Prabhupada smiled and said, "Oh, Bhagavat Das, very good. There are two things. There is the book Bhagavat, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and the person Bhagavat, who follows perfectly those teachings. He is a living manifestation of the book Bhagavat. And you are Bhagavat Das. That means you are a servant of the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat." Bhagavat speaks. I always wanted a name that meant I was the servant of the Guru. So when I heard this, I was very happy. Prabhupada started to hand me my beads, but then he pulled them back and asked, "And what are the 4 regulative principles?" So I told him, and he said, "Very good." Then he went to hand me my beads again, but again he pulled them back. And he asked, "How many rounds do you chant?" I was very proud, because I had been chanting 20 rounds a day for about 5 months. So I sat up real straight and said, "You are supposed to chant 16 rounds a day, Srila Prabhupada, but I chant 20. Prabhupada just turned away from me and said, "That's all right." It was like he was saying, "Don't get puffed up." And then he turned to me and said, "Here are your beads." Handing Dave his beads, Prabhupada said, "Your name is Amarendra. This means the best of the immortals." He named Adrienne Gayatri Dasi and Sam Suvrata. When Suvrata stood and Prabhupada noticed he was not wearing neck beads, he withheld the chanting beads and said, "You have no neck beads. Where are your neck beads?" Prabhupada turned to Bhagavat Das. "You also have no neck beads." Bhagavat thought that Prabhupada was going to take his chanting beads back, so he hid them against his stomach. Then Prabhupada turned to the senior devotees in the room, criticizing. "What is the matter with you?" he said sternly. "You are leaders and you don't know these things? Don't you know you must put neck beads in giving initiation?" The senior devotees were frightened by Prabhupada's anger. "We are sorry, Prabhupada," someone said. "Tomorrow for the fire yagya, they will have neck beads." "Yes," Prabhupada said, "you cannot do the fire yagya without neck beads. They must have neck beads." It's an interesting concept, this kantimala. Sometimes when people are referring to a devotee or asking them, "When are you getting initiated?" they may ask the question in a different way, especially in India. "When are you getting kanti?" When are you getting kanti? It means, when are you getting initiated? So part of the ritual, the sacred ritual, in receiving diksha or initiation from a spiritual master, one is to take vows, to pledge surrender to the spiritual master, to get neck beads. And that's also signifying various things. One is, it also signifies that we are getting the association of a pure devotee constantly, Tulsi Maharani, but it's also signifying surrender at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. And of course, as was exemplified by Lord Chaitanya with Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, the names were changed. It's a very important principle that the names must be changed. Prabhupada says that also. Initiation also means the names must change. So here, very important aspect of the initiation ceremony is that neck beads are important. Kantimala. Although it was midnight, Prabhupada asked if the devotees had any questions. Bhagavat raised his hand. Is it that we are on a transcendental platform, but sometimes we are affected by the three modes of nature? That's a nice question, right? We are chanting Hare Krishna, we are associating with the devotees, we are seeing the deities every morning, worshipping the spiritual master, taking prasadam, reading the scripture. That means Brahma, Bhuta, Prasannatma. We are situated on the transcendental platform. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in that same verse, Brahma, Bhuta, Prasannatma, na sochati, na kangshati, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, mad bhaktim lavate param. The devotional service is practiced on which platform? On the transcendental platform. How many of us are transcendentally placed? So, are we practicing devotional service? Yes, because you are transcendentally placed. We must always strive to be transcendentally placed. The attempt to be transcendentally placed is part of the process, is actually part of the process. So here Prabhupada responds to Bhagavat's very interesting and important question to him. Prabhupada replies, "It's just like you are on a boat." Any of you been on a boat before? Is it do you stand still? Anybody got seasick on a boat? It happens. Although you are stable, but it's moving. And you get off balance, and your whole insides get off balance, and you end up, nauseous in some way. If you're on a boat, then I cannot say you are not on the boat, is it not? Such a simple answer, right? So you are practicing devotional service, you are on the boat of bhakti. It's not that you are not on the transcendental boat, you are on the transcendental path. Therefore you are on the transcendental platform. You cannot say that you are not. But the waves are coming and they are rocking the boat. Prabhupada gestured with his hands like a boat rocking. So the waves of material nature are coming, he continued, and they are rocking the boat. But when you become an expert boatman, even in the greatest storm, you can stay steady and steer the boat and it will not rock. Bhagavat asked, "Well, how does one become an expert boatman?" "You can become expert," Prabhupada replied, "by becoming enthusiastic, sincere, confident, determined, and patient. Seeing Bhagavat's anxious face, Prabhupada added, and you must be patient. Everything will come in due course. What verse is Prabhupada quoting here in English? Yes, from the Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction of Srila Rupa Goswami. Utsahan nischaya dhairya tatat karma pravartanat. Yes, by becoming enthusiastic, sincere, confident, determined and patient. Sometimes devotees, when we forget these instructions of Rupa Goswami to the practicing devotee, and we become a little bent out of shape, we get a little agitated, something happens in our spiritual life. It was going so smoothly and suddenly you get a Chatsworth, what happened? And you like, what happened there? Why did this happen to me? I'm practicing so nicely. Yes, you are practicing so nicely, and that's why you got a little bit of a shake-up. That is why it happened. Krishna is sending his tests. Krishna is sending his opportunities for more and more surrender, deeper attachment to his lotus feet. What could compare to the experiences and the tests of the Pandavas? Can our puny rocking of boat in our life compare to what they had to go through? And they were celebrated at that time and even now as the greatest devotees of Krishna. Krishna was constantly by their side. And Queen Kunti clarifies this in a wonderful prayer. I encourage you all to regularly read Queen Kunti's prayers, and especially Srila Prabhupada's lectures on the prayers, which is in a book form, Teachings of Queen Kunti. She clarifies the beauty of all the disturbances that they experienced. All the disturbances. And how did they see it? She especially saw it not just some cruel fate and karma of theirs that they had to endure so much of trials and tribulations, persecutions, reversals one after the other. She saw it as the mercy of Krishna. So much so, she utters an amazing prayer. What does she say? Vipada Shantuta Shashvat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru. That, my dear Lord, please, if you don't mind, if you can be so merciful and very kind to me, can you please send more and more sufferings my way? Who wants to pray like that? Anybody wants to pray like that in their logically right mind? But in her transcendentally situated consciousness, she is actually praying for more and more calamities to come her way. And she has a very intelligent reasoning. What is her reasoning? Because throughout these calamities, whose association did we have? We had your association always. And your association came in the form of these calamities, that's one. But you came to navigate us, carry us through these calamities. So far as we're concerned, to have your darshan, to have your association, even if it means through the form of these calamities, then these calamities are our greatest benediction. So please send more and more. So then we know you'll never leave us and go back to Dwarka. You'll always stay with us. So next time you have a upside down experience in your life, just think, wow, Krishna, okay, how are you going to navigate me through this? What do you want of me? How do you want me to respond in the to attract your mercy? Because if you are constantly with us, if we are constantly having your darshan, Queen Kunti is saying, apunar bhava darshanam, then we will no longer see the miseries of this material world. Because on one hand you are seeing Krishna. If you only have eyes for Krishna, will you have eyes and attention for the miseries of the bhava, apunar bhava darshanam? Will you have darshan of bhava, the horrible nature of the material world? No, you won't. You won't have it. So like that. So even if we are on this boat, even if it's rocky, we simply stay on the boat of the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, the association of the Vaishnavas, the following of the process of Krishna consciousness. And in due course, as Prabhupada told to Bhagavat, and you must be patient. Everything will come in due course. That's all we have to do. Patience and patience and patience. But we cannot fight Krishna. Krishna, if you could only adjust your mercy in a little way, just a little bit this way, instead of sending this calamity, could you send me the calamity of maybe an increase of 5,000 rands a month in my bank account? People don't see that as calamitous, right? A raise, increase or something. They don't see some good health as a problem in one's life. Now Krishna says one must be equipoised in happiness and distressed. But we are very equipoised in happiness, but we are not equipoised in distress. Krishna is saying one must see it as both the same thing, equipoised. So yes, we must be patient and sincere. Sitting informally on the bed in his abbreviated dhoti, Prabhupada had answered Bhagavat's questions in such a way as to fully satisfy all the devotees. The devotees were already satisfied just to be with Prabhupada. But by his answers to their questions, not only they, but all the devotees could take encouragement and be satisfied. They would tell others what he had said, and everyone would cherish these instructions of Srila Prabhupada. Here's a nice section for the university preachers. Amarendra also had a question. Amarendra was intense and impassioned, and so was his inquiry. Before becoming a devotee, he had been a leader of campus radicals. Now he wanted to bring that same intensity to bear in spreading Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada, Amarendra asked, how can we make them, referring to the students, how can we make them take to this Krishna consciousness? What can we say when we go to preach to people? What can we say that will make them take it? His voice was heavy and forceful, demanding action. Now here Srila Prabhupada's revolutionary, radical answer. Are you ready for this? This is what you must do in the campuses now. You simply ask them to please chant Hare Krishna, Prabhupada replied. Whether they take it or not, that is their business. That is between them and Krishna. But you have done your business. You have done your duty for Krishna by simply asking them, please chant Hare Krishna. That's kind of radical. And that's easy. Who says university preaching is difficult? Come on. Just present them the opportunity and walk away. I'm not sure in this discussion if I'm always going to come on what I just said. I hope so. Yeah. How do we take our minds away? How do we take our minds away from Maya and bring them to Krishna? Radha Vallabha asked. You must drag the mind, Prabhupada said. You must drag the mind back to the sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And again he repeated, you must drag the mind back to the sound vibration. All right, Prabhupada looked around. You are satisfied now? The devotees responded, yes, Srila Prabhupada, thank you very much. Then they all left. It had been the greatest day and night of their lives, they all agreed, and they would never forget it. It must have been something for those 5 devotees, right? Who were unsure whether they're going to get initiated or not. And at the last minute, okay, come to the room. So, this is the thing about Krishna consciousness. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary to the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when he discusses the section of, sorry, not 10th canto, 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the discussion between Yudhisthira Maharaj and Lord Krishna, where Krishna is guiding Yudhisthira in the understanding that how he blesses the devotee with his mercy. Yudhisthira has this concern, and he's telling Lord Krishna that actually I pray, it is my prayer that your devotees will be very, very opulent. Because if they see that your devotees, if others see that your devotees are very opulent, then they will naturally be attracted to Krishna. It's kind of a logical approach. But yet we see, my dear Lord, your devotees are very poor. Right? Yet Lord Shiva's devotees, anybody want wealth and opulence and fame, recognition? Lord Shiva's devotees are known to be very opulent. And Krishna answers his query or his concern and says, what's that verse? Yasyaham anugrinami harishyetad danangshanai. Krishna tells Yudhisthira Maharaj that when I feel especially inclined to a devotee of mine, especially merciful, and naturally I want to offer some mercy to that person. So the first installment, get ready for this, devotees, if you are wanting to get Krishna's mercy. The first installment of my mercy to that devotee is that I harishya tad dhanam. I take away everything from that person. Incidentally, that's the meaning of the name Hari, one who takes away everything. So I take away everything from him and I leave him with nothing. I leave him with nothing. Why? Is that a nice sign of Krishna's mercy? It's not a nice sign from a material perspective, from a calculating material perspective. No, it's not good. How can you are worshipping this Krishna and see what his first installment is? And he even proudly presents that, and it's recorded for all time in the greatest of all literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. How merciful is this person? Is it really merciful? No, it's not, from a material perspective. But Krishna knows that the greatest addiction anyone can get is his own association, is Krishna's association, is the remembrance of Krishna's name, form, glories, pastimes, and so on, his qualities. That is the greatest wealth, the greatest dhanam. And in order to qualify ourselves for that, in order to become eligible and potent enough to hold that greatest benediction, we have to give up everything else. And sometimes we don't want to give it up. So Krishna helps us, just gives us this nudge by taking away that burden, that horrible burden, that intense burden of holding on to all the other material wealth that we think is important in our lives. Name, fame, wealth, reputation, friendships, attachments to family, society, and so on. He takes it away. And he leaves you with nothing. So the only person you turn to is Krishna. And that's when we become eligible for the greatest fortune. Of course, some of you may be thinking, but this is harsh. Give up my family, give up my this, give up my this. What are you all teaching the Hare Krishnas? You all are just isolating them from the whole world. We get that brainwashing charge every now and then, right? Yes, we have to give up everything for the sake of Krishna. But once you give up everything for the sake of Krishna and embrace Krishna, then you are truly embracing your family, your friends, and society. You are transcending your material, temporal connection to them, which was based on how much of enjoyment they can give me, how much of pleasure they can give me, and how much of pleasure and enjoyment I can give them, a materialistic exchange. But by giving that up and embracing Krishna, then you are truly embracing them with transcendental love, genuine love and affection. So by giving up mundane attachment and replacing it with a spiritual attachment, that is what Krishna is asking of us. This is what Krishna is blessing us with, that opportunity. So So this is what Krishna is telling Yudhishthira, that this is the greatest, this is the first installment of my mercy. The first installment. So yes, when we are going through upheavals in our lives, reversals, when this is getting taken away and that is getting taken away, okay, Krishna, you are taking this away from me. I'm eager to see what you're going to give me that's better than what you are taking away from me. Because that's how Krishna deals with his devotees. He never takes away something unless he has something better to give. Can you imagine that man, that man who came to visit Sanatana Goswami in Vrindavan? What was the torment that was going through his mind when he heard that Sanatana Goswami has this touchstone, that whatever you touch it to, that item, that object turns to gold? And he went to Sanatana, and Sanatana said, yeah, you can have it. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's just lying there in the rubbish dump. You can go and get it. Right? So he eagerly went and he got it, he tested it, and yeah, wow, things are turning to gold. And then suddenly he realized, wait a minute, this Chintamani, where is it? He's keeping it in the rubbish heap. Would any of you keep your valuable possessions in a rubbish heap? Like you're driving out the car, the back gate, and on the left you see the skip, the rubbish skip, and it's got the garbage over there. You're not going to keep a valuable thing there, right? Be crazy to do that. So he had this doubt, this man had the doubt. If Sanatana Goswami is keeping this treasure, this most valuable item in a dump heap, that means he's got something so much more valuable. So he then thought, okay, let me go and check now. So he then went to Sanatana and asked, my dear sir, you definitely have something more valuable, right? If you're going to keep your touchstone in the garbage dump. Is that true? And Sanatana said, yes, I have something way more valuable than what I gave you. And this man said, no, I must have that as well. He says, okay, if you want this more valuable possession of mine, then you have to throw this Chintamani into the lake. Probably Manasi Ganga, I assume, because Sanatana was always based there. So if any of you are looking for a touchstone, you can swim around in Manasi Ganga, maybe, if that's the place. I'm not sure if that was the lake. First you throw that, and then you'll become eligible to receive that which is most valuable, that I host more. So can you imagine the trauma this man must have been going through? Yeah, he's got this Chintamani, and now he's been asked to throw that into the lake, to renounce that in order to receive the most valuable gem, the most valuable of all treasures. What would you do? You're meeting the sadhu for the first time, right? He fulfills your desires to get the touchstone. Now he's asking you to throw that away, in order to receive something valuable, more valuable. What would you really do, honestly? Yes, Isaiah, what would you do?
I'll keep the touchstone and ask what he has, and when I see that is better, I will drop the touchstone and take the higher taste.
So you are calculating based on your logic.
I have
But
to.
your logic has already, that man's logic, and by inference your logic has already understood he has something more valuable. Because you already trusted him by getting the valuable Chintamani from him. So implicitly, intuitively, yes, what he has is more valuable than what he's asking you to give up. The question is, are you really willing to give up what you have in order to receive the most valuable treasure of all time? And most of us are not. Most of us are not. That's why we hold on to stuff. That's why we feel some agitation when something happens to us, right? Something goes on and we feel, we get riled up because we are not ready to let go. Despite us having so many years of assurances that what is in store for us if we renounce our material connections, or rather renounce the materialistic nature of our connections, we should say. That's a more appropriate way of saying it. Because we all survive on connection in this world based on relationship, right? We cannot be without relationship. But we have to renounce the materialistic nature of these relationships, which are based on, as one senior devotee would say, what I love about you the most is how much you love me. That's the basis of so many people's relationships in this day and age, right? So yeah, we are not ready. But here we are giving assurance. We are being given the assurance by Krishna himself, Lord Chaitanya's teachings, Prabhupada's own example, that if we truly want the greatest treasure, then we have to renounce the materialistic connection and replace it with a spiritual connection to Krishna. Just like Srila Prabhupada said, commenting on this verse and how this verse influenced his own life. Yasyaham anugrinami harishyata danam shanai. Prabhupada said that actually I'm living proof of this. What Krishna is saying. I'm living proof of it. Because Prabhupada, he was destined, according to astrology, to be the wealthiest man in India. Right? It was destined. It was foretold. And his business was going pretty well for a change, at one point. And then suddenly, out of the blue, everything just got taken away. Everything fell apart. Complete failure. And like, what's that, He's doing so well. And Prabhupada commented later, much later, after he established ISKCON, that Krishna, he tested me initially by taking everything away and forced me to take up this path. He took everything away. He made me a pauper. And later, Prabhupada said, later Krishna tested me again by giving me everything. So first he took everything away from me, he tested me, and now again he tested me by giving me everything. And Prabhupada said, just look at all the opulences that I have. Who could compare? In every city of the world, I have a mansion, I have many cars, and I have hundreds of servants. Which person on the planet at that time of Prabhupada saying that could have attested to the same? And best of all, these servants, I don't have to pay anything. They do not receive any remuneration. Day in and day out, they go for hours and hours a day serving me. He's not in a proud way. He's making a point. He's making a point. That's just see the nature of Krishna's mercy. Just see the nature of Krishna's mercy. So yes, Queen Kunti, she was praying like this. That when Krishna's mercy comes, and it may come in this form, in a format that's externally tough and difficult to bear, but with it comes his darshan. And when one has darshan of Krishna, the audience of Krishna, then one no longer has audience or darshan of the calamities of this material world. This is the whole principle. Okay, we'll just finish this last section of the Gainesville visit and we'll conclude. While Prabhupada rode to the Jacksonville airport in a car with a few disciples, the other devotees followed in their van, bringing the Vyasasan from the temple for Prabhupada to use at the airport. Can you imagine this? So the devotees are bringing a Vyasasan to the airport for Prabhupada to sit. This was the simplicity, the genuineness of their attachment to Srila Prabhupada and their enthusiasm to please him. I mean, it must have looked ridiculous, right? Just the whole scene carrying this Vyasasan. But this was their simplicity, their purity of attachment for Prabhupada. One can only imagine who this Prabhupada is, I mean, I know when we are in front or having the association or the anticipation of the association of our spiritual master or some exalted Vaishnava, how our hearts flutter and how excited we get. But reading Prabhupada lilamrta and hearing the accounts of the devotees, of their experiences of Prabhupada, I can just imagine what this person must have been like to have extracted this out of the hearts of so many people. Srila Prabhupada closed his eyes and rested as he rode, and the devotees in the back seat of his car ate the remnants of his prasadam. Imagine the devotees, the fortune they had. Krishna. Amazing. Hridayananda speaks. I think he was the temple president of the Gainesville temple at that time. He was a householder at that time. It was my idea, he says, it was my idea to bring Prabhupada's Vyasasan to the airport. I was thinking, how can my spiritual master sit on the same seats that karmis sit on? It just seemed impossible. How could Prabhupada put his lotus body, how could he sit on the same seats as the karmis? I was very agitated by that. Amarendra had built the Vyasasan, and he used to build everything like a tank. The Vyasasan must have weighed several 100 pounds. It took 4 or 5 devotees to carry it. Even Bilva Mangal couldn't carry it on his own, like he carries this on his own. Srila Prabhupada arrived first, and the Vyasasan wasn't there. By the time he got to his boarding gate, and the Vyasasan still wasn't there, I was in anxiety because I didn't want him to sit in a regular seat. I thought it would be a great offense on my part. Then, as I looked down the long, long airport corridor, I saw 6 brahmacharis, half of them without their shoes on, lugging Prabhupada's Vyasasan down the corridor. It was such an absurd scene. If you know Hridayananda Das Goswami, I can just imagine him speaking this in his amazing way, humorous way. Prabhupada just stood there looking in disbelief and disgust. And finally, several sweating, groaning brahmacharis came and dropped the Vyasasan down in front of Prabhupada. Prabhupada just looked at it with disdain, walked past it, and sat down in the ordinary seat. How could Prabhupada do that? He just dismissed their efforts. So yes, we need to combine devotion, our devotional sentiment, with practicality, and think, how is this going to reflect on the spiritual master? Sometimes, you'll know, we tend to have a habit of going a little out there, and sometimes when you step back, especially, you become a little older around in the movement, and you look back at these things, like, we used to do that? We actually did that? But it's nice. In a sense, it's purifying, it's growing, it's a growing experience. But don't look at older devotees when they tell you, okay, maybe it's time to tone down, slow down. Don't look at them like, oh, you are just envious of Guru Maharaj. Just because you are not getting it doesn't mean... It happens sometimes, but sometimes we got to be realistic, reasonable with our setting, where we are. Imagine, from a outreach perspective, how ridiculous this must have seemed in the airport. People but like, this is just a cult. These people have been brainwashed. Get away from them. So Prabhupada looked at it with disdain, walked past it, and just sat down in an ordinary seat. While most of the devotees sat at Prabhupada's feet, this is also another very important aspect now. While most of the devotees sat at Prabhupada's feet, chanting the Guru Vashtaka praise to the spiritual master, Hridayananda was preaching to the people who were standing and watching the spectacle. He had some of Srila Prabhupada's books, and he was trying to distribute them. Srila Prabhupada gave more attention to this preaching than to the devotees seated at his feet. Important point. Like Srila Prabhupada said once, everyone is, what was that? Everyone is singing, Prabhupada, oh Prabhupada, Prabhupada, oh Prabhupada. And Prabhupada says, better they bring me my shoes. In other words, instead of Prabhupada, 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 you are this, you are so this, you're looking so devotional, Prabhupada, do some practical service that will actually help me. This is not to say that singing Guru Vastakam in the morning at Mangalarati can be avoided now because I want to do my laundry so I can have a free time during the whole day to do my seva, or, chant all my rounds during Guru Puja so I can just get a head start on things. I mean, I'm saying things, it's like an Ishtagoshti now. But that's important. That's important. Like Srila Prabhupada once got a bit disturbed with his Sanskrit editor, Pradyumna. Pradyumna had recently acquired some Shaligram Shilas, and if you know Pradyumna Prabhu was so expert and meticulous in how puja is done and how verses are chanted. He was just a real Pandit. Prabhupada nicknamed him Panditji. Right? So he got so consumed by doing his Shaligram puja in the mornings that one day he was not present for Prabhupada's Guru Puja. And Prabhupada asked once, where is Pradyumna? Where is Pradyumna? And then somebody told Prabhupada, oh, he's doing his puja, his Shaligram puja. Then Prabhupada said, no, first Guru Puja, then Shaligram Puja. He said like that. So it's essential. But at the same time, we can't replace service to the spiritual master, practical service to the mission of the spiritual master, cultivating the transcendental qualities that the spiritual master wants us to cultivate in how we treat each other, how we do our service, how we learn the philosophy, that effort. We can't replace it with just standing around looking devotional the whole day. No, some practical service must be there. Then that is what attracts Prabhupada's attention. Just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, don't act in a way that you can see Krishna, but act in such a way that Krishna will desire to see you. That's very important. Alright, so we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada lilamrta ki jai. Does anyone have any comments, questions? Yes, Jai Sachi Nandan Prabhu. You may need new ones, huh, Madhurya? I have some more in my room.
Haribol. Hare Krishna, Swarup Damodar Prabhu. Thank you so much for that enlightening Prabhupada Leela. You were reading about the initiation. Initially, Prabhupada was initiating. And we see Prabhupada's compassion on especially the Western disciples. The regular principles by that time seemed very draconian. But Prabhupada's compassion and kindness and patience with the disciples. And I was thinking of one pastime with Mother Malati, very humorous story that after they got initiated and traditionally they have to circumambulate the fire. And then I think Prabhupada's accent Bengali accent seemed a bit confusing for them also. And Prabhupada motioned them to bow down. And they heard it like blow. So they bow down and they start blowing into the fire. And all the smoke was going into Prabhupada. And Prabhupada very calmly took the cartels and started to jet.
Blow down, yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada had high standards, but his approach in implementing the standards was very patient and very encouraging and very personal. He applied it in a personal way, not the same thing to each person. So yes, the standards at the time seemed very lofty, especially to his customer base or the people that he was accessing, these hippies who were like, no rules and regulations, like to hell with rules and regulations, been there, done that, we don't want it. And now he's slowly introducing. The first batch of initiations, they didn't have to take 4 regulative principle vows. You know that? That didn't happen in the very first batch. It came later. It came later. When Prabhupada noticed some of the devotees were having, cake and coffee at the nearby shop, donuts and coffee at the said, okay, wait. And that's when Prabhupada wrote down all that famous in his handwriting, that famous little note, and he stuck it on the wall. So Prabhupada was very personal and patient in his implementation of, and we need to be the same. One cannot sustain a relationship based on rules and regulations. One can only sustain it on the basis of love. The rules and regulations are there to carry us to the experience of love. That's important. But it can't just be dependent on love, on rules and regulations. And that's how Prabhupada was so expert at this. Very expert. Yes, Rukmini?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'm thinking about guided intelligence, because there's there's relevance and then there's loyalty to the Shastra. Like Srila Prabhupada saying, just tell them to chant Hare Krishna, and if they take it, they take it. And he's saying it to a particular time, in a particular time, to a particular person with a particular inclination. And then you see the 200-pound Vyasasan, and then it's completely irrelevant. And it just, it's like, what are you doing? So, and the difference between both for me seems to be guided intelligence. But then how? How do you know your guided intelligence is guided properly?
That's why you need guidance. Yeah. When I was reading that part about Prabhupada's guiding Amarendra about how to engage with the university students, I was thinking, wow, that's just so... It's like, I'm not sure what the context and what was going on in the university students or the university program at that time, and how detached Prabhupada was. It's showing a level of detachment that just do your service, present it, and Paramatma and the Jiva, it's up to, whatever happens there, you are creating some impetus, some spark. But if Krishna is inspiring you from within to do more for that student, that's also part of it. And the inspiration of the super soul, we may not be able to decipher it, understand the language in which it's coming. So we need to have the guidance of someone who can understand and can decipher it for us. And that typically, generally is the spiritual master. After all, we accepted our spiritual master because we accepted him as the external manifestation of the super soul. So if you are not taking guidance about what the super soul is trying to tell you, then have you really accepted your spiritual master? You haven't really done that. So you took a vow, you got a name, you got the kantimala, you got the beads, you got everything. So we need guidance in how to guide our intelligence. And the basis of the guidance is Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. These three things have to be generally in sync before we come to conclusions. And if for some reason there's a lack of understanding in what the Guru is saying, or what the tradition is saying, which refers to the sadhus, the parampara and the tradition, and of course it also includes great devotees in our presence, then the Shastra is the foundational aspect. It's the central guidance, the central evidence of the central authority for us. So the Shastra is the central authority, but the Guru reveals it. The tradition shows us how to live by it. So all three need to work in sync. And for us, we find, like Prabhupada spoke about the name Bhagavat earlier. I don't know if you were here. He gave initiation to this one young man. What was his name? Anybody remember his name? Huh? Gary? No, Gary was the first one. Bhagavat was... Gary became Dharma. Yes, Joseph became Bhagavat. So Prabhupada explains Bhagavat, the book Bhagavat, and the devotee Bhagavat, the one who's living according to the teachings of the scripture. Sometimes the scripture, because of our type of upbringing, things may not connect with us, things may not seem relevant. We kind of miss things in the scripture half the time. Therefore, the devotee Bhagavat is so essential. So essential. Person who's living it. And that generally is our spiritual master, but it also includes other great devotees. And Prabhupada once was making the point, who is more important, the book Bhagavat or the devotee Bhagavat? And Prabhupada said, the devotee Bhagavat is more important. Why? Because he can pull on your ears. He can correct you. But it's not very easy to accept correction from the scripture. Right? How easy? Because you can read it and you can just close it up, put it on the shelf. Yeah. But you can't avoid the devotee Bhagavat. Because they are persistent. They are persistent. They are persistent. Yeah. So yes, we need guidance. We need guidance. And our guidance must be watered every day. Our intelligence, rather, must be watered every day by reading scripture and by accessing the teachings of our spiritual master. If we are not doing that every day, then it's a dry day. It's a fasting day. It's a dry, horrible fasting day. No, no, no. We must every day listen to the spiritual master, listen to Prabhupada and read Prabhupada's books. I think I was telling the other day, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami has such grave concerns for the movement. He said two things. He said, how will this movement go on if devotees are not reading Prabhupada's books? And then he got into it a little more. And he said, actually, how can devotees become Krishna conscious without reading Prabhupada's books? So very important 2 points. So devotees, please, become Krishna conscious. The only way to do it, well, not the only way, the key way to do it, the way that supports all our activities, including chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping the deity, distributing books, preaching to students, doing kirtan, that one activity that makes everything that we do in Krishna consciousness relevant and understandable is what we find in Prabhupada's books. Without it, when doubt hits us, we'll have no protection from doubt. Doubt is so powerful. And if you have been struck by the power of doubt in something you may have experienced in Krishna consciousness, and somehow, if you turn to your greatest weapon, Prabhupada's books, you'll find doubts are immediately eradicated. So please, please, please. I know we are very strong about book distribution, and that's the foundational service of our movement. Prabhupada often said, if you want to please me, distribute my books. Was so clear about this. But as important, if not more important than distributing Prabhupada's books, is to read his books and study his books. Because once you do that, then the austerity of book distribution won't seem austere. Because you know the wealth that's in this book. And I'm sure, at the same time, as Prabhupada said about preaching to the students, your job is just to present it. Whether they take it or not is between them and Krishna. So then it makes book distribution pretty easy, right? Just right. Okay, let's stop here. Srila Prabhupada lilamrta ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande.